Hi, everyone. This is Be Heard, Empower Yourself. And I'm Amy Tala, the host. And as most of you know, I try to have a variety of subjects and different interests, topics that would interest not just women, but also men or just whoever. I am very interested in a subject right now called energetics. So I have invited Lisa Erikson today. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Mimi. Great to
Hi.
be with you.
Yeah, it looks like I'm in my garden
It's
with the
beautiful.
hydrangeas behind me. But my Zoom app was fighting me today, wasn't giving my regular setting. But those of you on the podcast, it doesn't matter. The Zoom on YouTube, you like it. So let's talk about this women's energetics, but I think you could apply this to men too, in some ways. And it's based on the subtle body characteristics,
Mhm.
especially of the feminine energy body. And within the two primary body, let's call it mappings, the meridians and the chakras, men and women share many of the same features. And
Mhm.
but there are some differences also. And for women, and I know this to be true because I've been through all these things, energetic shifts can occur when there's menstruation, pregnancy, motherhood, perimenopause, menopause, everything. So each of the phases brings changes, energetic changes, and along with the physical and psychological changes that we're more familiar with. And this is where Lisa comes in, because Lisa is an energetic therapist.
Yeah, I
You
call
tell me.
myself energy worker because then it sort of encompasses, yes, it is healing work, but really I work in a more interactive way that is maybe sort of a kind of therapy. So it's a mixture. We're working with your energy body, but you are too. It's not me transmitting healing to you. It's something we're doing together with your
Yeah.
own awareness as well. Yeah.
What inspired you to specialize in energetic healing?
Yeah, it was a gradual process. I encountered meditation. It's now been 35 years ago because of stress and stomach pains that I was having that the doctor couldn't diagnose and thought it was stress-based. And it was unusual at that time to refer you to meditation, but he did. And I just happened to end up in a chakra meditation class.
Ah,
And really, there's many types of meditation. Chakra meditation is just one. But chakra meditation, you focus on energy centers in the body, and that really awakened something in me. And it helped me also. And so
and did you
eventually,
go
yeah,
ahead?
go ahead.
I
I was
don't
gonna say
understand.
eventually that led me to study energy healing, and
Okay.
I later on, much later on, made a life transition.
So my question is because I know for my life, when I started on a change in the path I was on, let's say, one thing leads to the next thing.
Yeah.
For me, it was getting sober and
Mm.
going to a rehab and learning these perfectly sincere, simple things that I should have known how to do, but I didn't because I did not have parents that taught me any coping skills. So I turned to men and alcohol. But
Mhm.
then that led me to counseling, and then that led me to meditation, and then it took me to new age spirituality, the steps. So it's like when you went for meditation, did you know much about chakras at the time?
I knew nothing about
Yeah,
chakras.
yeah,
I really didn't even know much about yoga, which now is everywhere, right?
yeah.
So this was kind of a combination of yoga and meditation. And for me, because it did help my stomach aches, it just awoke this whole realization of the power of the
Mhm.
mind-body connection, that we
Yeah,
can have physical symptoms, but they have a mental or emotional component. And so you have to look at them in a holistic way, right?
yeah,
Yes, you may need some sort of treatment, medical treatment, but there are also so many things mentally and emotionally that impact
right.
our.
Well, yeah, and it's like with me, if I'm stressed and I'm in a situation, because I've panic disorder, PTSD, and chronic depression, trifecta. And part of that's genetic, and part of that is from past life I had with terrible men and abuse. But if I get triggered or I'm overwhelmed and I get stressed and everything, yeah, you can take a Valium and maybe that's fine. But I have meditations, guided meditations for stress. And I find that when I lay down and put one of those on, that works just as well to calm my system, right?
Yeah, it's really about calming your nervous system. And everybody needs different things work for different people. There's breath exercises, etc. The interesting thing about energetics is that the chakras, even in ancient teachings, were taught to be linked to the nervous system and to
Mm,
the endocrine system. So these are the two systems that are activated when we're stressed, also during life phases, because they're
yeah,
hormonally linked.
yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that chakra work for many of us can be a really powerful way of helping to kind of remap our nervous system if we have trauma patterns and also to deal with different phases of life.
Well, I'm diagnosed with Sjogren's syndrome. And do you know what that is? Because a
I
lot
don't
of
know. What
people
is
don't.
that one? Yeah.
Sjogren's syndrome, most people that do know about it think it means dry eyes and dry mouth.
Oh, I know dry-eyed syndrome, but I probably didn't
Yeah.
know it under that name.
Well,
Okay.
Sjogren's syndrome goes farther than that. It starts with the eyes, and then it starts working its way through your body. It is an autoimmune disease, and it is a, what do they call it? Inter something that it goes to different organs and different places, your nervous system, etc., through the years. So I knew I had it for 20 years, but I couldn't prove it to the doctors because they look for a marker. They do that with cancer too. They'll take your blood and they'll go, well, you don't have the ANA marker. And I'll say, well, but I have all the symptoms. If there's 13 symptoms and I have them all, I think I have Sjogren's.
Yeah.
So my eye doctor there's a test to do and he did it with my eyelid. And he said, Marie, when I press that, liquid, some fluid should come out. Yours is toothpaste. It's like toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He said, you're Sjogren's syndrome. But he was an eye doctor. He couldn't write a prescription, really, or verify the diagnosis. They want a rheumatologist.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of going to fit in. You'll see how. Then it was my sinuses and everything. And it got to the point where I had a septoplasty. Okay. That helped a little bit. Then all of a sudden it was my vocal cords and it was affecting my voice and I was hoarse. And I kept telling them, doctors, I feel like there's a ball here, a ball. That's how big it feels. That's what's making me, hoarse in my throat and everything. So they ended up finding the vocal cords were swollen, they were bowed, there was a nodule. So they had me do speech therapy and different medications for GERD. And the ENT doctor said it goes past, it's not just regular GERD. This GERD is going all the way up past your, I'm not good at medical terms. What I want to say, not esophagus, epilatus. Anyway,
Larynx up here?
it goes up, yeah, it goes up that far. And it's called LPR. And people don't know about that. They just know about GERD. Okay, so we worked on that. Well, in April, I had a respiratory relapse. I had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And they did a CAT scan, and there's scarring on my lungs caused by the Sjogren's. And my rheumatologist still was looking for the damn marker,
Right.
So I stopped even going to him. I was like, this is ridiculous. So now a neurologist did small fiber nerve tests, on my legs, and she said, you have Sjogren's syndrome. Okay. But she still wasn't able to, in her field, I guess, prescribe the medication. Finally, I go back to this guy and he says, well, I'm going to do more testing. So he did tons. like, I can't tell you how many vials of blood they took out of me. And I go back up there and he says, "Oh, I found markers." I went, "Hallelujah, you found markers. Good." And he said, "And guess it, they're mostly in your salivary glands." Now,
Mhm.
this is where I'm getting to. So now my ENT last week looked down my throat. He said, "Your vocal cords are back to normal. They're not swollen, but you have a huge ball of mucus." Right where I said it was, right where I said
Well,
that ball was. And so he put me on medications to thin it, but he said, definitely have Sjogren's syndrome because saliva is what thins out your mucus.
mm,
So if your body's not making saliva, that mucus gets stuck.
yeah,
Now, look at the 20 years it took me, not me, the doctors,
yeah.
to find it out. And so to me, I think Sjogren's syndrome, and I'd like you to look it up later after the show and see if it fits into a lot of things that you find. But I definitely think that has to do with chakras too. I really do, because something's off that makes your body pretty much do things that are not good for you. I'll stop
Yeah.
there. So now
Well,
you
it's
have
interesting
something.
because I do work with a lot of trauma survivors, different kinds of different types of trauma.
Mhm.
And really, from an energy perspective, well, even a psychological perspective, one of the things that can occur is often called disassociation or disconnecting from the body. In chakra terms, it means disconnecting from the root chakra, which is like the foundation, which is linked to your body. So
Yes.
patterns really that were survival mechanisms, right? We talk about
Mhm.
fight, flight, flee or fawn, right? These
Yeah.
are all energy. They each have an energy imprint
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
And they were means of surviving challenging moments, right? But they become
Yeah.
habitual. But if they become habitual and someone is disconnected from their physical body, their energy body and physical body are sort of disconnected, they leave their body a lot.
Hmm.
Um, that root chakra is linked to the immune system. And so autoimmune, we already know statistically autoimmune diseases are higher and autoimmune issues are there's a higher risk of them if you do have trauma or abuse, particularly in
Yes.
childhood. It's
Yes.
one of the contributing factors, right? So then,
Yeah.
like from a chakra perspective, you're working on getting someone comfortable with being in their body, feeling safe in their body, so
Hmm.
their body can fully work the way it's meant to.
Right.
It's
Right.
also interesting to me, each of the chakras is linked to an element. The sacral chakra, which is in the pelvic area, which is often really impacted by sexual trauma, is linked to water. And so it's not unusual to have symptoms linked with issues related to liquid production and things like that if the sacral
See?
chakra is
Yeah.
blocked. Yeah, yeah. So it does all often tie together.
Yeah, it's my endocrine system that's, I believe, that's not functioning correctly. And
Yeah.
what I'm trying to be on top of right now is if Sjogren's gets really bad and it gets to your lungs, it starts scarring your lungs, I'm sorry, it's going to be a fatal disease because you have
Yeah.
to breathe.
Yeah.
So I sleep with oxygen right now, and I don't mind it. It's not like the hospital type thing, And I always tell everybody, I feel like I'm filling up my tank while I sleep, the oxygen, and I have a pretty good day. So that's good. And my voice is getting a little bit back to normal, right? So I had a lot of sexual trauma, physical abuse, domestic violence in my life. And my alcoholism was definitely a way to self-medicate, you know. So, like I said, you have to be in a certain place to get to the next place, right? So someone that's listening to this and going, "Oh, it's very interesting," but maybe they have a problem with vaping or pot or alcohol or whatever, they're not ready to go to that next step. I wouldn't have been, I had to get this cleared, you know. Um, so tell me about the sexual trauma healing and how that is specifically addressing that need for survivors.
Yeah. And I do work with both men and women, and there are some variations in how it
Mhm.
typically impacts someone. Also, the
Mhm.
situations are different, right? Whether it was childhood or assault when you're older. It's not that everyone is the same, but usually, there are patterns, some sort of patterns around those survival patterns that I just mentioned, right? A pattern of fight or getting angry whenever you don't feel safe, a
Mhm.
pattern of fleeing, which is really just withdrawing whenever you don't feel safe,
Mhm.
a pattern of fight, flight, freeze, which is sort of just you just shut down and you can't
Yeah.
respond whenever you don't feel safe, or
Yeah.
fawning, which is people pleasing to try to stay safe.
Yeah.
So then this means even if that pattern, you develop one of those patterns to try to stay safe in abusive situations, then it carries over to other situations like at work.
Yes.
You have someone who's a little confrontational with you. You're not physically in danger, but that same pattern gets triggered, and you have a tendency to either fight with them, to just escape any confrontation with them altogether,
Mhm.
to freeze up and not be able to talk or make your points whenever they speak to you, or people please and just give in all the time, right? So that's how it translates into
Yeah.
daily life.
I
And so,
think,
and then you
yeah,
have to try to rewrite that.
but
Yeah.
I like have two. I either have anger or people pleasing,
Yeah.
depending on
People
who the
often do.
person is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is normal. That's something that can exist. You have two patterns.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I always tell people I never cry. I don't cry.
Mm.
It could be the saddest movie in the world. My husband's crying. I'm not crying. But when I get angry and frustrated, that's when I cry, you know, because like you said, I don't feel safe. I feel like I'm not in control of my situation, and I've been triggered, you know. And even with all the counseling work and spiritual work that I've done, there are still times I can get triggered. And right now it's because I'm a caretaker for my husband and I've had no physical support for the last 10 years and I'm worn out. So my daughter, one of my daughters, is coming down. So I'm going to go on a 5-day cruise all by myself.
Mm.
And it's going to be meditation and massage and just in
And
the
water.
and water, all the things my body needs, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, because I know absolutely nothing about this. I love that when I don't know a damn thing and I get to learn. Kundalini, Kundalini activation. Tell me what the process is and the benefits of that.
Well, there's a lot of energies that run through our energy body system. Just like in our body, we have blood and we have other fluids, lymphatic, our energy body has different energies that run through it. Kundalini is one energy, and Kundalini is really linked to spiritual growth, spiritual awakening. But really, I would posit whenever we go through a big sort of personal growth phase where we are forced to let go of different baggage, limiting beliefs, things like that, maybe even a partner or a certain job, or whenever we shed and have to enter and almost become, in a way, a new person to some degree, their Kundalini is active in our system. But there are activation techniques to particularly specifically activate the Kundalini to trigger or to speed this process of awakening to your connection to spirit, really. Now, it's interesting because in the context of trauma healing, we're often very tentative about working with Kundalini because you do need to feel safe in your body. Sometimes the sensations can be a little intense. So,
Yeah.
Kundalini is not the first energy that I would work with someone,
Mhm.
as someone needs to feel really comfortable in their body. They need to feel really safe. Their chakra system, you want to feel nice and grounded and solid before you
Yeah.
do Kundalini activation. So I work more with the healing energies of the chakras first.
And the Kundalini, of course, it's not something you can do on your own, I would think. I would think you would need someone like you to help them through the process and be there in case, they get triggered or upset, right?
Yeah, I think that's usually best. I mean, there
Yes.
are, Kundalini yoga training programs, so you can be in a class setting. People do read books and teach themselves, but in general, it's helpful to have a guide, especially if you have any kind of trauma or anything like that in your background.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Lots. So let's talk about still meditation and how can someone like personalize meditation so that it will fit their experience and help them the most.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
I think
that.
you start out with experimenting and what actually feels good. It
Mhm.
shouldn't feel like a chore. Sometimes it will, because that's reality, right? Not everything is great all the time. But in terms of which technique works for you, like experiment with breath-based meditation where you're focusing on your breath. Experiment with visual meditations. There's guided meditations where you're listening to people's voices. And then there's chakra meditations, and I offer a lot of those on my website as well. So your guided meditations where you are focusing on the different energy centers in your body and you're visualizing a color of light there or a visual. Different things work for different people. Some people are very visual. Some people love focusing on their breath. For other people, they don't like that. It makes them too hyper conscious of their breath. Some
Mhm.
people really like just stillness, and other people need a little bit more to focus on. So they like to have a candle or they like to have a chakra.
Yeah.
So I think it's about experimenting. And if you don't really resonate with one style, not giving up and going, oh, see, I can't meditate. Meditating isn't for me. Keep
Mhm.
going, keep
Well,
experimenting.
that's what I used to say because I
Yeah.
thought, for me, I thought meditation meant being quiet, and I've
Yeah.
been quiet. And I can do a few minutes of that silent meditation, but I love guided meditations.
Yeah.
And it has to be the right voice. And there's a lot of apps for free that you can get for phone. And like I'll find one that I really like and it's calming and I'll play it when I'm going to bed at night and I fall asleep to it. But I have to like the voice,
Yeah.
you know. So if I don't like the accent or and this one that my favorite one is a male voice with an accent, but I don't quite know if it's German, but it's just a slight hint of an accent. But I find him very calming.
That's great.
I play him all the time. Um, so let's talk about that age-old question for women, doing it all, balancing work, family, and your personal energy, because that's what we're expected to do, right?
Yeah.
So how do we try to do that? Balance
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. A big issue for many women, many humans, but especially women, is
Mhm.
boundaries and really being able to hold on to the integrity of your own energy body. And there's really simple techniques, which is one of the things I really focus on a lot in workshops and in my book. Learning how to just create a filter for yourself. You really hold this with your lower chakras, so it does take a little practice, but it's something you can learn to activate every day when you leave, before you leave your house and
Okay.
throughout your day.
Okay.
And it helps with the drain because so much of the drain is that our energy is going outward, outward, outward. And especially if you have people pleasing tendencies, it's going outward to sense what people want from you and then trying to fulfill it. Very exhausting.
Yes.
So the reality is, changing your boundary doesn't change if you're over busy, right? But
Yeah.
it can change how draining that busy day is for you. And it
Yeah.
can help you feel more centered in yourself. So it
Yeah.
isn't exhausting for sure.
I was always a problem solver. I had to be. I pretty much raised my siblings from 5 years old on because of my dysfunctional family. And I was always the go-to. So if someone had a question or problem, oh, ask Marie. Now, Marie was my birth name. Now, after I wrote the book, of course, I used a pseudonym for the book and everything else. I took Mimi because I am becoming a totally different person from Marie.
Right.
And I just, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like people would call me, and yes, I would know the answer. I would tell them the answer. If I didn't, I'd research it and find the answer for them. And I did that for years, you know. And finally, a year or two ago, it just started to completely drain me. It's like, I don't want to be the problem solver for everybody, how to work their phone, their computer, or what doctor to go to, or just anything. And just because I know it, I
Yeah.
don't want to be the one to solve your problem. So boundaries,
Yeah.
boundaries. So I started doing that. I was on two boards, my church and my local community that helps the seniors that need help here. And I was on that board. And I stepped down from both boards the same day. They both got a letter. And I felt
Mhm.
such relief, because it took a lot of responsibilities off my shoulder. And like I said, I'm a caretaker for my husband.
Yeah.
So what's left for me? I needed that. So
Yeah.
boundaries,
Is
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
There's
that.
really an energy boundary that you can create. And, it's interesting because in terms of our conversation about trauma healing, when someone's experienced a lot of trauma, like I spoke about, they tend to be a little disconnected from their root chakra, from that base chakra that's based at the base of the spine. And so that leaves you a little unboundaried from an energetic perspective. So it's really about getting really present in your body. Things like exercise help, gardening help, but from a chakra perspective, you focus really low. You focus at your tailbone and you
Yes.
focus on being really in your body. We tend to be either in our busy mind
Yeah.
or maybe we're in our heart, which is also good, but there's a real value to focusing down at the base of your energy body and your spine, also
Yeah.
the space of your nervous system, the bandha
Yeah.
based.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
part of chakra
you
teachings.
mentioned gardening, and I love my garden, and I love going out there. And I live in West Palm Beach, Florida. And like there was nothing in front of my condo, like nothing.
Yeah,
And now it's like a tropical
right,
wonderland. But it needs tending. There's plants that get in there, or weeds, whatever, you got to pull them, and certain like plants need a little pruning, or there's a little spot and I need to spray them with something. Anyway, this hot weather, every single day here, it's like in the 90s every day, heat advisory. And I'm
right,
older, and and I have breathing problems. And
right.
I miss going out in my garden. So I've been just going out for like a few minutes, like later in the day. And but I think part of that is feeling rooted, because you're on the ground, on the earth, not on a tile floor or a carpet. You're like on the ground. And your chakras, I think, feel that. Plus, you're not thinking about anything except that present moment, which are your beautiful flowers. So that's something I
It,
really
it is
like to do.
basically root chakra therapy, what you just described.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
connected to the earth. Yeah, I talked about the second chakra being linked to water, but the first chakra is linked to the earth element, and it's linked to feeling present in your body in the
Yes,
current moment. So that
yes,
gardening for people who like it really
yeah,
is
yeah.
root
It's a
chakra
good thing.
therapy.
I know. I love it, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that I'll get back to it when the temperature drops a little bit. But right now, my babies are not getting enough attention.
Oh,
So, but they're growing, because in Florida, there's certain plants that they just grow no matter what.
yeah, yeah.
So, let's talk about pain, physical pain, physical
Okay.
pain. Um, I know there have been trials that have shown that energy healing, the work that you do, can significantly reduce pain, including patients with arthritis. And I have arthritis. It usually shows up flares up in my right hand and in my feet. Strange, but that's where I get it. So talk about that, the pain reduction.
There's really two aspects of that, or ways that meditation or mindfulness can help. One is that you're practicing not being so identified with your thoughts, emotions, and sensations. That's what you're actually doing in meditation. You're kind of pulling your mind back to the present moment when it's spinning out. And pain is processed by the brain. So if you have the capacity to learn to breathe through it, to relax into it, to let go of identifying with it, that actually helps the experience of pain, helps you,
Mhm.
lessen the actual intensity. Then there's the actual energy healing piece. When you're activating particular chakras, you're activating your natural healing capacity in your body. And that can help reduce inflammation. It can help increase production in your body of healing agents that slow the advancement of arthritis or the triggering of bad episodes, right? So
Yeah.
it's really it's changing your relationship to pain, and then it's also actually healing energy and stimulating your body's own capacity to reduce inflammation.
And I always tell people, I mention a lot in my podcast and my YouTube channel, that stress causes inflammation, and
That's
inflammation causes the pain or the disease.
yeah.
And I think I'm right. What do you think?
Absolutely right. And there's a lot of ways to help your body reduce inflammation, right?
Mhm.
Meditation and chakra. Yeah, reducing stress, because when we're stressed, we produce adrenaline and cortisol and all these things that actually contribute to inflammation.
Yeah.
There's also dietary things that work for many people and things like that that can help you, and different exercises that help you reduce inflammation. So
Yeah.
coming at it, sort of every angle is really helpful.
Now let's go down to the stomach and your system there. A few years ago, in fact, my fourth book is going to deal with a lot of this stuff, a lot of my medical situations and history, because there were a lot of unusual things that happened. But I had a problem with my stomach and infections, and I ended up, they took out 85% of my stomach. I
Your stomach,
literally,
your actual stomach or
my
colon
stomach,
stomach? Mhm.
85% of my stomach. The last time I was in the hospital, in the report, instead of stomach, they put remnant.
Mm.
I just think that's kind of funny. It's
Small one
called
at this point.
a
Yeah.
remnant. It's probably it's the size of an egg.
Yeah.
So with the problem I was having with the Sjogren's and affecting me here, of course, and the size of my stomach, I have to be very careful about how I eat, when I eat, how slow I eat, small meals. And I bring that up because, you know, there's some kind of bacteria like E. coli, and they can actually, E. coli, people think is terrible, but like when you're taking a probiotic or a prebiotic, right? Let's talk about that, how that actually helps promote healing,
Mhm.
if you can make sense of what I
Taking
said.
a probiotic. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we're trying to rebalance the gut microbiome, right? And
yeah,
whether or not you need a probiotic really depends on the state of your microbiome, right? Some people don't. They have a naturally balanced one, or they eat foods that help balance it. Of course, the most famous being real yogurt, right? But some people don't. And our microbiome is so connected to our overall physical health, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
often called the little brain. It is impacted as much as the big brain by stress. We often talk about gut reactions. From my perspective, it's linked to this third chakra. We've already talked about the first, the second, the third is then in your belly. And it's also linked to boundaries, wouldn't you know it? And so when we take on a lot of energies from other people, we also have a tendency to have digestive issues of one type
Yeah.
or another, because that third chakra is linked to our digestive system. So
Uh-huh.
working on boundaries is one of the energy things that actually helps with that, working on strengthening that third chakra that lights up the whole belly, and then rebalancing the gut microbiome is the physical component of that. And all of that so linked to how we handle stress, because we already know our stomachs and our whole digestive system is one of the main places stress shows
Oh
up.
my
I just mentioned
heavens.
that I had stomach aches, right?
Yeah,
Stomach aches, nausea, diarrhea, these are so often, even when we talk about butterflies in your stomach when you're nervous, right?
yeah, yeah.
What is that really? Anxiety, stress so often manifest in our gut.
So 3 weeks ago, these very intelligent, I guess, hackers got
Mm,
into both our phones and our bank account. Now, I didn't get any money stolen, but they
yeah,
messed up my phone so bad, got into my husband's phone, and our phone just weren't working. And
yeah.
we were going back and forth with Xfinity. And I won't tell you the whole long story, but stress, stress. I'm dealing with the bank. I'm dealing with the phone, um, for weeks. And they'd send me the new credit card. Okay, you're hacked. You're going to get a new credit card. Well, I kept getting three. I'd get a third one with somebody's name on it. I didn't know. And they go, okay, we'll send you new credit cards. I get a third one again with another. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And not to brag, but I finally went into my accounts and found the little hole where he was getting in.
Oh, wow.
And I brought it to the bank. And they said, oh, I wonder why he went in that way. I said, I'm not the hacker. He is, so I don't know, but here he is. Anyway, I had so much stress that 2 weeks. I couldn't even eat. My stomach was in knots. I felt nauseous, diarrhea, everything you mentioned. Okay. And when I had my doctor's appointment a few days ago, I said to my husband, I guarantee you I lost at least 5 pounds.
Mm.
Get on the scale. I lost 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Just because I just couldn't eat. So
Yeah.
that is an example of how stress
Yeah.
can affect your digestive system, all
Yeah.
that. One last question, and then we'll get the title of your book out there and everything else. But I read they're using animals and doing research with animals, indicating that energy healing actually does impact immune response and does reduce cancer
Mm.
metastasis. And I think they're using mice. They usually start with mice.
Mm.
That true?
I'm not familiar with that study. I do follow a lot of different energy healing studies, and I would not be surprised. I mean,
Yeah,
certainly there's been a lot of study around it. It hasn't necessarily made it into mainstream
right.
scientific, but there
Right.
is a lot of other individuals that are doing different types of studies. And yes,
Oh,
energy healing improves immune response.
yeah,
And if you improve immune response, that's going to have an impact on the
yeah,
metastasis. It's going to slow the metastasis of a tumor,
yeah, yeah.
right? So it's really amazing the connection. We are all energy, right? Just this is a
That's,
denser energy
we
than
are all
spirit, right?
energy.
We're all energy. And so it's
Yeah,
just in the level of our mind that can connect to that and make an
yeah,
impact.
yeah.
Make an
And
impact.
doctors finally, they tell you to do yoga and meditation, where years
Yes.
ago they would just give you a Valium and that was it.
Exactly. No, that's why I was really lucky that I had a doctor 35 years ago that said this because it was so rare, you know?
They
And
never,
now they
never did.
recognize that connection. Most doctors recognize that
So what's
connection.
the name of your book, Lisa?
Chakra Empowerment for Women. And
Okay.
my website is enlightenedenergetics.com.
Mhm. Okay, because I'm
And
going to
I don't
put,
know when this is airing, but I have a bunch of workshops coming up, one on boundaries, one on menopause, one on just the chakras overall. So
yeah.
yeah, good
Oh,
time.
good. Well, it'll probably air tonight because
Oh, you're fast. Okay, good.
I'm a quick, yeah, yeah. I just
So
did
give
it.
me the link because I'll
I
post it.
will, of course, because I would
Yeah.
expect you to put it on
Yeah.
your social media and your website. I did someone else's show a few days ago, and she said, "Okay, it probably won't be on for a month." I'm thinking, "Oh boy, I don't."
Oh, we have some that are like 6 months, so
Yeah, like,
everybody has
what are you
their own
doing
schedule.
with it?
Some people like
Yeah,
to record all at once and then they play them out over time. So different
yeah.
models.
I
Yeah.
I had maybe once or twice where there was some problem where I had to edit and do something with audio and everything. But most of the times it's just do a Zoom and you're good.
Put it out. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Thank
Keep it
you.
simple. Keep it
Keep it
simple,
simple.
Lisa. I
Right.
loved having our talk today. This was great. This
I
is
did
good.
too, and thank you so much. And I love people, especially that are willing to share their own stories in the way that you do, because it just benefits people. And I'm sure you hear that from listeners all the time.
I
But
have been in my first book, Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons,
yeah,
which is my life story. This primary doctor that I went to the other day, I had given him one Christmas or something, and he didn't get around to reading it, but now he read it. So I came in, and the first thing he said was, "I finished the book, and it was excellent." I was like,
yay.
"Oh, I mean, thank you."
Yeah, that's great. No,
So
it's all by
I
sharing this stuff that
shared, and
people
I
find
I
new
I
resources.
also that's why I give them as gifts a lot of times. And I gave one to my lab technician that takes my blood, and she's the only one that can get in my veins. She read it, the doctor read it, and then the assistant was not starting the book, and she told her, "You need to read it."
Oh,
So women all have similar problems in their lives, and
yes.
that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I do the podcast. So thank you so much again for coming. And in
Thank
a
you.
few months, I hope we do this again.
That'd be great. Have a great day, rest of your
You
day.
too, Lisa. Thank you.